Your Views, My Facts, begins in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Your Views and My Facts. I am Thomas John. In a short while, I'm going to be telling everyone about a short story involving a military trial case that has been lost in time. Hell, it was even lost to me until my father had resent me the links to this case, and as much as it infuriates me, my father is even more furious regarding this story. So we will get to that shortly. I'll spell out the timeline, the entire case, and then at the end of the episode, I'll provide some information so that we could potentially send a message to the congressmen and women and the senators to hopefully get them to change the course that this case had taken and how it has just stagnated in time. But before we get to that, if you would like to find us on Facebook and or Twitter, you can look us up at ViewsandFacts. And I would like to also announce that we have our first supporting advertiser. Lasting Lips by Leanne offers the original and patented Lip Sense products for everybody out there at an affordable value. And if you go on to Facebook, to at ViewsandFacts, or you go directly to her page, which is, again, Lasting Lips by Leanne, Leanne. If you purchase a product between now and December 5th, and you mention Views and Facts, you will be entered into a drawing to win even more amazing items. Just in time for Christmas, everybody. Just in time for Christmas. So, again, at Views and Facts, Facebook, like us, follow us, and go ahead and send a message to Lasting Lips by Leanne if you have a special someone out there, or if you indeed are one of our female listeners. Mention Views and Facts and get entered into that drawing. So you have now until December 5th. So, all right, let's get right to the case. Just on Tuesday was October 10th, 2017. Now, why is that date important? Well, on October 10th of 1995, Specialist 4th Class Michael New of the U.S. Army disobeyed a direct order, which is already controversial in that the majority of us do not believe that it was a lawful order. So he decided to disobey it, and he ended up getting a dishonorable discharge. Now, he could have gotten a lot more, but the powers that be decided to not go down that route, probably because they knew that that was not going to be good for the Department of Defense or the U.S. Army or what have you. Let me go ahead and explain some of it for you now. So William Jefferson Clinton, in January of 1993, was sworn in as the 42nd President of the United States of America. Yes, this is the same Bill Clinton who also enjoyed his time in the Oval Office with some lips always around his little pecker, and he should have been impeached and thrown out. If you think that President Trump has done things that deserves impeachment, well, by all means, that motherfucker should have been gone a long time ago. That's neither here nor there. Let's get back to the case. In February of 1993, Michael New enlisted in the U.S. Army. Now, for any of our service members out there that are listening, thank you for your service and God bless you. You all took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, right, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will obey the orders of the president and officers appointed over you. Granted, this is for the enlisted only, according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice regulations, yada, yada, yada. So help me God. Now, the key point in that oath is that You are there to defend the Constitution of the United States. Keep that in mind as I continue taking you down the story of Specialist Fourth Class Michael New. On May 3rd, 1994, President Bill Clinton signed a very controversial directive, which was Presidential Decision Directive 25, Papa Delta Delta -25. Now, this policy was a directive that outlined his administration's position on reforming multilateral peace operations. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, all that is saying is how the United States was going to support the United Nations. Look, we can all agree that the world would be a better place if there was more peace and countries were safer, we had less terrorism and so forth. Look, I get it. I understand. But I would not feel comfortable in saying that I'm going to support the United Nations because, again, the oath that one took was to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So the UN is, first off, a hodgepodge of bullshit that I really don't agree with, and quite frankly, it could just be dissolved. Because as it stands now, and this is according to Forbes from 2016, is that the United States is the largest contributor financially, and I'm going to presume that by extension, militarily, economically, that we do the most for the UN. So, again, 2016 article, which the following are the top 10 countries supplying the UN system. So, lo and behold, the United States is number one, where in 2015, we contributed just over $1.6 billion. Now, the next country that is behind us, so number two, was India, and they contributed $1.2 billion. Following them in number three is the UAE, which is the United Arab Emirates, at $805 million. Then Switzerland, Belgium, Afghanistan, Denmark. Down to number 10 on this list is Kenya, then at $445 million. Now, there's nothing special with Kenya. I just wanted you to know that number 10 on the list was Kenya at $445 million. So by nearly $400 million, we are passing the second most contributing country to the UN. The UN might as well just be called the United States and all those that support us, because that's what we normally do. We give out, we pay the money, and then everybody else, right, is asking for our assistance, and we don't recoup any of that money back. And people wonder why we are in debt. Look, mind you, all the bullshit about healthcare and other laws that are trying to be pushed through. Let's talk about recouping the money that is owed to us. You want our support? You pay us 50% up front, down payment. Otherwise, get obliterated, get the fuck out of here. Anywho, as I said, the Presidential Decision Directive 25, right, was a policy to assist the UN in some peacekeeping operations that were going on. There was some tension after the Cold War and so forth, which is why a lot of these items came up. And President Clinton at the time thought that secretly he could shape a deal to assist the UN when it probably really wasn't going to be passed by Congress. So he made this directive, backhandedly, sleight of hand. Hell, it wasn't until 2009. Now, again, this directive was passed in 1994. So it wasn't until 2009 that it was even supposedly being able to be accessed by Congress. Why I say supposedly is that it was declassified in 2009. This directive And apparently Congress didn't even know about it then back in 1994. Are you kidding me? What the fuck is going on? If you are potentially going to put troops for another country, you better get the approval of Congress. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys agree with me. We'll see. Let's continue on with the case. So in July 1995, this is approximately 2 years after Michael New had enlisted, he was assigned to Germany in the 3rd Infantry Division, which was part of a peacekeeping mission that was going to be going to Macedonia. Well, in August of 1995, Specialist 4th Class New was informed that his unit was going to be required to wear a blue UN helmet or beret and a UN armband or patch. And Michael was told that the order to wear these accoutrements was lawful because the president says so, therefore it is. However, look, nobody provided any legal, legitimate, rationale basis for that order. And apparently there was also a briefing from the battalion that offered the justification that we will wear the UN uniform because it looks fabulous. Well, go fuck yourselves. I will only wear a United States patch. And if you do not like that United States patch, if you do not like the United States, there are multiple other countries that will take you in. So go ahead and renounce your citizenship and get out of here. On that note, when Michael New was told that he was potentially going to have to be wearing these accoutrements, he had sent a message to his dad. Look, unclassified, there was no FOUO stuff, all right, so let's get past that. So he sent a message saying what he was potentially going to have to do. He contacted an attorney because he did not believe it. And then there were some congressmen that when they started hearing from some of their constituents, and remember, congressmen and senators, they work for us. Do not fall victim to the other way around. So if you don't like what they're doing, vote them out. And I'll get to that at the end of this episode. The DOD then, after getting some complaints and so forth and asking for an explanation, released a statement that basically denied any charges against Specialist 4th Class New, which it was essentially a correct statement because no order had yet been issued, so no order was disobeyed. On 18 September 1995, Michael then sends a letter to his chain of command explaining where he stood, and he wanted some further explanations. Let me just read to you some excerpts from Michael New's letter to his chain of command. So first he was asked that he should review the UN Charter, the history, and the objectives, to which he, in his opening statement in this letter, said that he had reviewed it, and he found that the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are incompatible with the UN Charter. And I tend to agree with him. Again, not going to go into the specifics. That's not the purpose of this episode, but if you want to, if you would like me at some point further to explain the U.S. Constitution and our Declaration of Independence, some Federalist Papers, so forth, we can do that later, and we can explain how the UN Charter significantly distances itself from our values, morals, and principles of the United States of America. Michael New went on to say that he does fully intend to obey all lawful orders, but he wanted legal justification to change his uniform, since he was potentially going to have to put on a helmet and an armband for his deployment of Able Century. That was the name of his grouping that he was going to be at for this peace mission to Macedonia, what have you. Again, he goes on to say when he was told about that he would have to alter his uniform, that he expressed reservations, and that he even, asked to state that he would do some other mission. And he further went on to say that he wasn't trying to avoid any difficult or dangerous assignment. On the contrary, he had previously served in Kuwait, and he had offered to serve anywhere else in the world in his American uniform, as in his capacity as a U.S. Army medic, under American command and U.S. constitutional protections. He had even been offered a green to gold program, which is going from an enlisted to an officer commissioning tool, and that he was still considering that offer. Of course, little did Michael know, or rather, he probably very well did know, that he was probably about to give all that up. So he went on to state that he's not going to wear a UN uniform. He couldn't understand the legal basis of the Army order to change his uniform against his oath of enlistment, against his conscience, and against his will. Further explains in his letter to his chain of command, again, that he had to study the history and objectives of the UN, and as he continually went on to study the UN history and American history, the more incompatible they were to him. Finally, in the end, he went on to say that without a response from the Army about the legality of any orders to become a UN soldier, I do not intend to surrender my status as an American soldier to wear the uniform of a foreign power. If you wish to convene a courts-martial and send me to jail for standing upon my oath as an American soldier and for defending my wearing the American Army uniform and its historic significance, then I cannot prevent that action, and I will accept it as a price I am willing to pay, rather than submit to an order to obey or render allegiance to any foreign power, including the United Nations. Phenomenal. Okay, now that is just phenomenal to me, the letter that he wrote to his chain of command stating that. And this information can be found online, and you can get it from multiple sources, and I'll give you some places that you can go review this later if you want to do some research of your own. But just phenomenal. Advancing the story a little bit. So on 10 October, then, 1995, he received no such response or justification on why he would potentially have to wear a helmet, a beret, or an armband with the UN insignias on it. He showed up into formation in his U.S. Army uniform. 549 of his fellow U.S. Army soldiers did show up in formation, wearing the emblem on their baby blue caps and the UN patches on their right shoulders. Michael was immediately removed from the parade ground, where he was informed that he would be facing a court-martial. He was read his rights, and this began the chain of events that continue sending shock waves around the country and the world. After Michael was removed from the formation, just so I could drive this point home, those remaining soldiers came to attention and saluted General Jehu Engström of Finland. Now, look, Finland was not even on the top 10 countries of 2015 that contributes to the UN, so I don't know what the fuck Finland's doing in this goddamn equation. But anywho, they came to attention and they saluted this general of Finland, who was their new commanding officer for the next 6 months. And General Engström, like other UN officers, pledges an allegiance to the United Nations. To the United Nations. I didn't know that was a country. So I don't know what allegiance you're pledging. As you probably can guess then, Michael New ended up getting court-martialed. And the funny thing is that he was not even allowed to present any evidence in his own defense, because the judge ruled at the beginning that the order was lawful. And the judge told the jury that they would be tasked with only one thing: to determine if Specialist 4th Class New had or had not obeyed that order. Look, it took the jury approximately 15 minutes, and they came up with their determination, which was that he did disobey an order. Now, I'm not going into whether it was lawful or not, because again, you know where I stand on it, which is it was an unlawful order. My allegiance to the United States, not the United Nations. Throughout the chain of command, all the way to the Pentagon and beyond, they wanted to give Michael New a dishonorable discharge and a prison sentence. A prison sentence for saying that you're not going to wear an armband with the UN insignia on it? Go piss off. Look, for those that are in the armed forces, again, each different branch has their own regulation covering like dress and appearance and wear of their uniforms. So just to reiterate the point, nowhere in the 670-1, which is the Army uniform regulation, I may not have the title right, but I definitely have the actual regulation number correct. So the 670-1, again, the Army uniform regulation, nowhere in there does it state anything about a UN beret or helmet. Nowhere in there does it talk about a UN armband that you will wear. You are not provided the funds to go procure such items, and you can't even buy them in a military exchange. So that right there kind of sets a precedent that if I can't go get the items myself to properly maintain a uniform, what do you think how is that going to give me the legal right then if I can't even find it that I should be wearing it in the first place? All that aside, then, and again within that regulation, because it does not state that the UN insignia is authorized for wear, that right there should signify that it's illegal. Now, yes, I know that some of you are going to say, well, but the president authorized this directive and said that they're going to wear it. Well, under what regulation, under what justification and reasoning? That's what I want to know. That's what millions of others want to know. That's what Specialist 4th Class Michael New wanted to know before he ever got to October 10th, 1995, and he was never given an answer. No response was ever given. The panel, the jury, had returned with a sentence of a bad conduct discharge. Now, military personnel were stunned all over the world. And at all different levels. Obviously, those in opposition could not believe that he was getting off so lightly. However, for those that love this country deeply and dearly and have served or do serve, were ecstatic that the military jury had sent a resounding message to the Pentagon, the DOD, and to the White House. And how did they do that? Well, they guaranteed him a path of legal appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, yes, they ended his career, but they had no choice. They had no choice based off what the judge asked them to do. Additionally, the jury had told the chain of command that they essentially agreed with Specialist New, that American soldiers are not interested in being placed at the beck and call of a United Nations military force. You know, Michael New has, stood up for something. He gave up a career, and to this day, he is still awaiting the day when his bad conduct discharge will be turned over and it will be changed to an honorable discharge. Will that happen as it stands right now? Probably not. Probably not. Because as of, let's see here, 23 April 2007, Michael New's legal team is told that the Supreme Court is not going to hear the case. Is not going to hear the case. Now, I get it. This may not be a case for the Supreme Court, it could probably be solved at a lower level. But the thing is that all the lower levels have already failed him. That's why we have an appeals process. The appellate courts is for them to solve it at the lowest level, but they haven't done so. What do we do now is the question. What do we do now? Well, all I can ask each of you to do is to send a message or contact your congressmen or the congresswomen, the senators, write them a letter, again, give them a call, and tell them about this. Tell them about Specialist Fourth Class New, that you believe that his bad conduct discharge should be overturned and it should be an honorable discharge. Send a message to Trump if you support him. Now, that's neither here nor there. I don't want to go down if you do or you do not support Trump. This isn't about President Trump. This is about Specialist Fourth Class New, in that he was wronged and we need to make this right. We need to make this right. Here's the deal. I waited till the end because I did not want to bore everybody with the next information that I'm going to give out. So here shortly, this episode is going to end for the majority of you, unless you want to hear me rattle off some names here. But again, I hope each of you takes the opportunity to really let this trial case sink in and know that there are some things that you need to take a stand for. There are certain actions where you cannot let your spine bend, even for a millimeter. Michael knew that. Some other individuals that I know have taken stands. So don't be a sheep. Do not be a sheep. Be a wolf. Be ready to stand up for what you believe in. And as Michael New said in his letter, he was willing and ready to live with any repercussions that may come of it. But at least he was willing to take a stand. And he had done quite a bit of research before he ever got to that point. So don't just go all willy-nilly and start making stands just because you think you should. Make sure you have some sort of a basis for it, and the people will hear you. As I close out this podcast, if you go on to the congress.gov website /contact us, you can search for all the representatives and the senators that are currently serving, and you can either get their address or you can just call the phone number directly to them. Now, of course, it's going to go to their secretary or staff, what have you. But do that. Flood their phones. Flood all their phones until they get the message that we want Michael New to have an honorable discharge. So again, that's congress.gov /contact us. And as I start to play the closing music here shortly, I'm going to read out all of the congressmen and women and senators that were serving at the time, back in 1993, that are still serving to this day. And let me tell you, there are 76 of them. 76 from 1993. That's 24 years ago. That is 14.2% of the active Congress today, because there are 535 members. There are 435 in the House of Representatives, and there are 100 senators. But think about that, though. 14.2%. We should at least vote out 23 of them to get that percentage to under 10%. This is why there's still a problem in Washington, is because these individuals are allowed to just serve and serve and serve. But I guess maybe that's why we need to get some term limits, which will probably be an episode at another time. But anywho, that's 76 of them from 1993 are still serving as either serving in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. So, without further ado, here are all those that we should be offended by. Republican Joe Barton of Texas. Democrat Xavier Becerra of California. Democrat Sanford Bishop of Georgia. Democrat Sherrod Brown of Ohio. Republican Ken Calvert of California. Democrat Maria Cantwell of Washington. Democrat Benjamin Cardin of Maryland. Democrat Thomas Carper of Delaware. Democrat James Claiborne of South Carolina. Republican Thad Cochran of Mississippi. Democrat John Conyers of Michigan. Democrat Jim Cooper of Tennessee. Republican Mike Crapo of Idaho. Democrat Peter DeFazio of Oregon. Democrat Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut. Republican John Duncan of Tennessee. Democrat Richard Durbin of Illinois. Democrat Elliot Engel of New York. Democrat Anna Eshoo of California. Democrat Dianne Feinstein of California. Republican Bob Goodlatte of Virginia. Republican Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Democrat Gene Green of Texas. Democrat Luis Gutierrez of Illinois. Democrat Alcee Hastings of Florida. Republican Orrin Hatch of Utah. Democrat Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Republican James Inhofe of Oklahoma. Democrat Eddie Johnson of Texas. Republican Sam Johnson of Texas. Democrat Marcy Copter of Ohio. Republican Peter King of New York. Democrat Patrick Leahy of Vermont. Democrat Sander Levin of Michigan. Democrat John Lewis of Georgia. Democrat Nita Lowley of New York. Republican Frank Lucas of Oklahoma. Democrat Carolyn Maloney of New York. Democrat Edward Markey of Massachusetts. Republican John McCain of Arizona. Republican Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. Democrat Robert Menendez of New Jersey. Democrat Patty Murray of Washington. Democrat Gerald Nadler of New York. Democrat Richard Neal of Massachusetts. Democrat Bill Nelson of Florida. Democrat Eleanor Norton of D.C. Democrat Frank Pallone of New Jersey. Democrat Nancy Pelosi of California. Democrat Colin Peterson of Minnesota. Republican Rob Portman of Ohio. Democrat David Price of North Carolina. Democrat Jack Reed of Rhode Island. Republican Pat Roberts of Kansas. Republican Harold Rogers of Kentucky. Republican Dana Rohrabacher of California. Republican Elena Ros-Lehdon of Florida. Democrat Lucille Robel Allard of California. Republican Edward Royce of California. Democrat Bobby Rush of Illinois. Independent Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Democrat Charles Schumer of New York. Democrat Robert Scott of Virginia. Republican F. James Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin. Democrat Joe Serrano of New York. Republican Richard Shelby of Alabama. Democrat Louise Slaughter of New York. Republican Christopher Smith of New Jersey. Republican Lamar Smith of Texas. Democrat Benny Thompson of Mississippi. Republican Fred Upton of Michigan. Democrat Nydia Velasquez of New York. Democrat Peter Visklowski of Indiana. Democrat Maxine Waters of California. Democrat Ron Wyden of Oregon. Republican Don Young of Alaska. That was all 76 members of the current House of Representatives and Senators that are still serving, that were serving back in 1993, 24 years ago. Send them a message first saying, turn over Michael New's bad conduct discharge to an honorable discharge. And after they do that act, the next time that they come up for re-election, vote them out. Vote them out. They have been there too long. Now, look, you don't have to switch parties. I'm not saying you got to make a Democrat to a Republican, a Republican to a Democrat. Look, you want to keep the same party in there, keep the same party in there. But these people have been in there way too long. Way too long. And again, you can find their contact information on congress.gov/contact-us. Look, anywho, I hope all of you have enjoyed this little military trial case and the story in time of Specialist 4th Class Michael New. Go out there and seek the information. Find out exactly what was going on. I told you that I would give you the information. So you can go to, MikeNew.com. You can go to Google and you can search up this presidential directive 25. Google it all. Go to multiple sources. It's out there. It's all out there. And you can find all the information. The reason why I was using the MikeNew.com website is because they have linked all the information from their timeline to all these pieces of information that you need to get, and it'll take you right to specific websites to saying, here was a statement from the appeals court, here was a statement from the case, right? Here was who did what, here is the unclassified presidential directive that was never seen. They got it all there, was very thoroughly done with references and so forth. So, without further ado, I thank you for listening, if you still got to this point, for going through all 76 names with me. Thank you. And this has been Thomas John with your views and my facts. You can find us on Twitter and or Facebook at ViewsandFacts. Again, that is at ViewsandFacts. You can Google it, find out what you need to do. We have made some changes to the Facebook page. We've added a little app button, so it'll take you right to the iTunes store to get these episodes. Hopefully making it a little bit easier here shortly. We would like to be on Instagram and YouTube and so forth, making it just easier to access the information, access the podcasts, whether you're at home, at work, on the road, what have you. So, again, thank you for listening. Tell your friends if you've enjoyed everything, and we look forward to you tuning in for the next episode and or the next soundbite. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.